you have something beautiful to offer the world that is going to be something completely different than what I have to offer the world. And really stepping into that rational mindset and pulling myself out of that and to say, okay, has nothing, stay in my own lane, focus on what I'm doing, and everything else will fall into place. And I know for when I'm able to do that, that is when I'm happiest in this career. That is when I'm healthiest in this career. And I think that's when I thrive the most.
I just got done talking with Nicole from Kale Junkie, and I'm sure you follow her already. And I don't even know where to begin. This conversation, this interview, whatever you want to call it, is probably, I hate saying it's one of my favorites. I say that about every episode, but this one, you guys, she talks about her past eating disorder and how she healed from food. We talk about the highs and lows of Instagram. We bounce back and forth. There's laughter, there's tears. She shares about a day in her life. We do talk a lot about healing with food, anxiety that Instagram brings. The behind the scenes of what really goes into being a content creator, which so many people don't realize, all the behind the scenes that are not shown on camera. So everything is exposed, and it was just such a fun episode to record, and you guys are about to listen to it right now. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. And you all already know this, but I'm your host, Bethany Cameron, and this is the Digest This podcast. Let's go. Thank you so much, Nicole, for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Bethany. I love you so much and admire you. So.
Oh my goodness. For all my listeners that may not know, Nicole and I go way back, way back before 2020, before COVID, all that. So it's crazy now. So I like to start off with some rapid fire yes or no questions just to get people engaged, because I know people's attention span, their time is just short, and I really want to get people engaged to know what we're going to be talking about. So these questions, you can only answer yes or no to. Are you ready?
Yep, ready.
Okay. Do you have an assistant?
Yes.
Do you ever get tired of cooking?
Yes.
Do you regret quitting your lawyer job to be a full-time content creator?
No.
Does Instagram give you anxiety?
Yes.
Last question. Do you plan on quitting in the next 5 years?
No.
All right. You guys probably know by now that I created my own supplement line called Bethany's Pantry. It is a sister brand under the Nuzest label. Any and all of Bethany's Pantry products are created by me, specifically formulated to help with overall gut health and to be enjoyed without any gut upsets. This line of Bethany's Pantry products includes a protein bake powder that is so versatile and can be used for sweet and savory recipes, L-glutamine to help heal and seal the gut lining, and of course, my award-winning digestive support protein powder, which comes in 3 flavors: probiotic cacao, probiotic vanilla, and the newest flavor, probiotic strawberry, which I personally think is the best flavor yet. The taste, texture, and overall combination of ingredients in my products are created specifically for those with sensitive tummies, designed to help improve digestion, nutrient absorption, and ultimately your health, all while making it enjoyable and easy to consume and incorporate into your daily lives. There are countless testimonies on our website, and I have to share just a few. Monica E. wrote with a 5-star review, "So good on my belly, no more bloat, tastes incredible. I've been making the frozen hot chocolate recipe." And Tara F. wrote with a 5-star rating, "Best protein I have ever used. I would highly recommend this protein. The taste is great and it doesn't cause any digestive issues like other proteins I've used." And Laura R. wrote, "I like mixing it in a blender to make a smoothie, and since I do take medications that affect my digestive system, it helps with that too." I literally could go on and on reading all the 5-star reviews and testimonies regarding Bethany's Pantry products and protein. And there's a reason why my products are different from all the rest, because I don't compromise. There's no natural flavors, no stevia, monk fruit, or sugar alcohols, no dyes, no gums, no inulin or fake refined fiber that are commonly found in so-called gut support products. Plus, all of my products are vegan, paleo, and even suitable for a keto lifestyle. Now you can be 100% sure you are getting a little sipper item if it's under the Bethany's Pantry label. So head on over to newzest-usa.com/Bethany's Pantry to check out all of these gut-friendly goodies. Again, that's newzest-usa.com/Bethany's Pantry to see my entire line of products. You guys are going to love them and your gut will too. That's nuzest-usa.com/Bethany's Pantry. When am I going to have a baby? Are me and my husband trying to conceive? Do we want kids? These are questions I get asked all the time on Instagram. And I mean, we are literally at the beginning of our second year of marriage. So as of now, we are just enjoying each other and both focusing on our careers. That's not to say we can't plan and prepare our bodies for pregnancy. And even before I got married, I would get asked by women on Instagram, and I still do, by the way, if there was a prenatal vitamin I would recommend. Well, I found one, and it's by the company Needed. Needed is a company that supplies and supports women who are looking to become pregnant, already are pregnant, or just gave birth and are needing the extra nutrient support. They offer a range of supplements from fertility support if you are trying to conceive, pregnancy support for those already pregnant, and postpartum support, all formulated by experts and third-party tested. Pregnancy and postpartum are some of the most nutritionally demanding times in a woman's life, and a mom and her baby's health now and for years to come is influenced by her nutrient status. Sadly, 95% of women in the prenatal stages have nutrient deficiency, and most prenatal vitamins include bare minimum nutrition based on outdated guidance and stale research. Needed offers products to thrive, not just survive. And it's recommended and used by more than 4,000 experts from nutritionists to midwives, functional medicine doctors, and OBGYNs. I personally like their prenatal multi, which is available in capsules and a loose vanilla powder. But I prefer their pill form because there's no natural flavors, monk fruit, or citric acid in the capsules specifically. So if you've been looking for a prenatal, trying to conceive, already pregnant, or postpartum, head on over to thisisneeded.com and use code DIGEST for 20% off your first month of Needed vitamins. Again, just go to thisisneeded.com and use code DIGEST for 20% off your first month of Needed products. First of all, for anyone that doesn't know who Nicole Modic is, she is Kale Junkie on Instagram and all other social media platforms. And she just does so many different food creations, but she's more than just food. And I want to kind of go back because we're all going to get into food and recipes, but I want to go back to who was Kale Junkie before Kale Junkie?
Kale Junkie was a girl that was hurting inside. I was a lawyer. I grew up in a conservative Armenian household where growing up, it was all about, my dad was like, you can be a doctor or a lawyer. I wanted to make him proud. And so I went down the lawyer path, but inside I was struggling with a 15-year eating disorder of bulimia and binge eating disorder that nobody knew about. I was really hurting inside. I was kind of a shell of myself. But on the outside, physical appearance wise, nobody knew. Everybody thought I had it all together. I was successful. I had this successful career. But inside I was really suffering.
I want to talk about, maybe your eating disorder and your binge eating disorder and how you overcame that. But when did that start? Were you like in your teens, early 20s? Because how old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
So I'm 43 now.
And you look
Uh,
amazing.
Thank you. But this started when I was 15 years old. My parents sent me to an Armenian school and I was bullied. And I would sit by myself in the cafeteria. The girls were so mean to me. I remember this vividly. And I sat by myself in the cafeteria eating cafeteria food, which was just, heavily processed, very, loaded with all of the, things, the ingredients that I try to avoid now, for the most part. But I very quickly gained a lot of weight. I would gorge myself on food as comfort. And one day I came home from school and I think my mom had noticed that I'd put on some weight. And she looked at me and said, Nicole, I can take you to Weight Watchers if you want. And and you can lose the weight. And it was the first time that I remember when she said that, and I went to go look in the mirror and I was like, oh, I didn't realize that there was something that was really wrong with me per se, or that weight gain was wrong or something to be frowned on or whatnot. So I think at the time she thought she was doing something helpful for me because she associated thinness with being worthy. And I went with her to Weight Watchers. And at that moment, I very quickly learned how to calculate points and use their system that, is really, I think, in sometimes for some people really meant to help people. But for me, I took it to an extreme and I learned very quickly how to manipulate their point system to not only lose the weight that I'd gained in the Armenian school, but to use that after I got to the point of losing that weight, but just to continue this weight loss pattern that ultimately made me sick. And as I started to get thinner and thinner, I started getting more attention from men and from people. I would go places and people would say, "Oh my gosh, you look fantastic. You've lost so much weight and you look amazing." And those compliments, seemingly nice and well meant, perhaps, really fueled my desire to continue losing weight and to continue seeking validation from the outside world, in terms of being thinner and thinner and looking better and better in society's eyes.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like a lot of people don't realize the different comments that they're making to others that really have a true effect and long-lasting effect. Maybe, like your mother, of course, she had good intentions. She meant to help. But in especially a young teenage girl's mind, things can click and they can stick with you. And that person has no idea.
Exactly. And I think now at the time, it's only years later that I can reflect now and look back to those years and think, gosh, those compliments really, really negatively impacted my mental well-being. And because of that, I was so, I wanted to keep this outward physical appearance that I started restricting food. I wouldn't allow myself to eat, but inside I was so hungry. So I would gorge, on copious amounts of typically very refined sugar laden foods, because it was very comforting to stuff my face with all of these things. But then when you do that, really, it made me sick. You do that, you fill your body with that, and I couldn't keep it in. I would purge. And then this cycle continued because as I kept consuming so much sugar, the sugar acted in my brain like a drug, that the more I did it, the more I wanted. And it was this cycle that, to be honest, I didn't think I was going to survive or ever be able to break out of. I remember being at home one day, and after a particularly bad binging and purging session, I remember my head was pounding so hard and the blood vessels in my eyes were, I was so worried that I was like, you know what, I am going to die from this one day. I am never going to be able to have a healthy relationship with food, which is inside. I desperately wanted that, but I didn't ever see a way out. So that's the
Wow.
story, the back end.
No, I appreciate you sharing and just being so open. So, what was I mean, obviously, I want to talk about how the turning point and how you healed.
Mhm.
But I mean, you said this went on for about 15 years.
Mhm.
So, in the 15 years, you became a lawyer. And did being a lawyer and being in that status make you feel like you had to keep up with, quote, how lawyers looked?
No,
Okay.
so when I was practicing law, I was truly miserable with the career itself. So I was more focused on like the stress. It was such a stressful environment for me. And I think, for young aspiring attorneys or people in these high stress careers, I think you have to really be passionate about the actual career itself to be successful and to really thrive in it. Because I didn't love it. It was something that I fell into and I did to make my parents happy. Um, I was stressed all the time. And that was connected to the food. It was for me, the food was a way to control the stress. Everything in my life felt out of control. I'm in this high stress career that I'm making all this money, but I'm spending all the money on my living expenses, my car, and all of these things, which was filling voids, right? And I was living paycheck to paycheck, filling voids, and then using food to control and cope with stress that I had in my career. And also feeling very trapped because I went to law school. I took out so much debt to pay for law school, and feeling you just feel trapped. And that my only skill set at the time was practicing law. I never saw a way out because I'd spent all this money of doing that, and also feeling like I need help to heal my relationship with food and not know where to turn. So this was before Instagram was a thing. When I would go online and look for support for healing my relationship with food, all I saw were these like hospital like inpatient treatment centers, which, it would be nice to take time out of my life, but I couldn't do that. I had the bills to pay. I had all of these things where I couldn't do that. What I really needed was support, or to hear from other people that were going through something similar, or to hear stories of people that were inspired and found their way out, or find good therapists or other outlets for healing my relationship with food.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like I'm sure, so many people in the same boat, whether that is an addiction to food or whether that's an addiction to alcohol or drugs or whatever the case may be. I feel like so many think that they're the only ones. It may not even be an addiction. Maybe it's like just a health issue. I mean, I know for me, I felt like, gee, am I the only one suffering from this? And so to seek out support, I think that's huge, to know that, oh my gosh, this thing that I'm dealing with is so common. Like, I'm not the only one.
Exactly. And sometimes I think it, like you said, I mean, it can be isolating, right? Feeling like you're the only one. And also, like, there is a lot of shame and stigma, or at least at the time, there was more stigma around mental health issues, eating disorders, depression, anxiety. It was like all of these things. I remember at the time feeling like, gosh, am I flawed? Am I defective? Is there something wrong with me at my core? Am I not a worthy person because I am struggling with all of these things? And I think now, looking past, being on the other side, it's like we all struggle with something. And I've learned that over the years. And I think that's what wisdom and age does, is that you look back and you say, you know what? We're all dealing with something in life. Everybody's struggles look a little bit different, but there should not be any shame or stigma around these things, because the more that we talk about them, the more we inspire other people to heal their own issues, right? Or whatever, in whatever form that may be.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and I think too, just from doing this podcast and being in the health and wellness space for so long and seeing research, like, you don't have to be skinny to have an eating disorder. And I think that's what a lot of people feel, is that, look, like, hey, this person, X person, she looks totally normal on the outside. She couldn't possibly have an eating disorder.
Or vice versa. Somebody looks totally skinny on the outside.
Totally.
But actually, that person does not have an eating disorder. They
Right.
could be naturally thin. They could have a medical issue you don't know about, but to have a totally healthy relationship with food. It's such a we live in this world where the judgment just comes at you from so many different angles. It's almost like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's hard to even just live in society without some judgment from somewhere, right?
No, totally. And I mean, I can relate to that. Like, people blame me all the time. Oh, you have an eating disorder. You have this. And I'm like, well, maybe I'm just skinny. Like, like, I mean, I admit I'm not overweight, but you know what I mean? Or at the other end of the spectrum too, I see so many people and they are overweight and they think, oh, you eat so much, when I know that person and they eat so healthy, so clean. Maybe they have a hormonal issue, or that's just how they are. That's just how they're built. Like, obviously if you're like 500 pounds, there's a little extra here. But like, for the most part, people that are even like 50 pounds overweight, they're like, I'm eating really, really well. I know these people. They do not have a eating disorder or they don't gorge themselves, right? Or you could be like you, just a normal, beautiful woman, and you have no idea what's going on the inside. So to blame someone for something based on their outside appearance it's just baffling to me, because you have no idea what's going on. Maybe they're stressed and they're working 3 jobs, and you know what I mean? All the things.
Totally. And then when you have a career, as you know, in the public eye, it becomes that much more amplified.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So within those 15 years, I want to go back to your story a little bit. So within the 15 years, you met your husband, correct? And you got married?
Yep, I got married. And when I met him, I was knee deep in the eating disorder. He had absolutely no idea. I was embarrassed to ever share with him that I was struggling with my relationship with food. It came out by accident. He caught me one day. We had already gotten married and we moved to the Bay Area. And I will never forget this day. He was watching TV one evening in our living room, and I went into our bedroom to sit and to read. And I brought out a loaf of bread from the refrigerator. It was like Ezekiel bread. It wasn't even like some yummy sourdough something. It was like,
I know the bread. It's a little rough. Yeah.
I know. It's like cardboard.
Yeah.
So anyway, but it's funny. Like when you're in that, when you have an eating disorder, sometimes it's not even necessarily about the food. It's the action. If it's like this thing, it doesn't necessarily matter what it is. So anyway, I brought the loaf of bread to the bedroom, and I was sitting there. I closed the door. I'm like reading a magazine, and was kind of just slice after slice after slice going in my mouth. And I will never forget, he opened the door just to ask me something, and I jumped, and the magazine that I was feeling, like, it just like fell out of my hand and on the floor. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, nothing." And he came by the side of the bed, and he picked up the magazine, and the bread, a half-eaten piece of Ezekiel bread, fell onto the floor. And I was mortified. I was like, he pulls up the covers, and there was like the bag of bread there that was almost gone. And he's like, "What are you doing?" But not in a judgy way. It was just, he had never seen something like this before. So he was more just questioning, like, what's going on. And I said, I'm eating bread, and, I'm like so embarrassed. I'm tripping over my words, because this is my husband, who I should be so, honest with. He should have known every single thing about me when we got married, and he didn't. And he said, "Nicole, if you want to eat something," he's like, "bring it out in the open. You don't need to hide. Come out. Just come sit at the table. You eat whatever you want. If you're hungry, eat." And I remember tears start coming down my face, and he's like, "How can I support you? What do what do I need? What can I do to help?" He'd never been around somebody that had an issue with food. So I think for him, it was new territory, not even really knowing how to act or how to respond or how to support. But he was there. And I think that moment for me, where my biggest secret in life had kind of been exposed by the person I love the most, that was the first step of my healing because it was no longer a secret. And I think we live so long in secrecy when there are things that we deem shameful, that once they no longer become secrets, it's almost like a freedom happens. And that was the moment where I said, you know what? Okay, that the power that food had over me was released. So that's when I started thinking like, okay, maybe I can heal. Maybe I can talk to him. Maybe I can start taking steps and figuring out what healing looks like for me.
Wow. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was the point, the turning point of really healing. And after that, did you seek professional help, or how did you really just come out of this
Mhm.
and be free?
Yeah, I started at that point, I started getting really serious about healing my relationship with food. So I was still practicing law. We were newly kind of here living in the Bay Area. I found a really fantastic therapist that I would go on my lunch break. It was walking distance from my office in the city. I started to going to him twice a week because I felt like once a week's great, but I really need the support of this doctor. So I started going twice a week. And then I also enrolled in a yoga teacher training. I loved yoga, but I really wanted to find an outlet or really something to occupy me and to stop me from thinking about food all the time and really allow me to tap into my body and kind of sit with my thoughts that were uncomfortable. So in yoga, we do a lot of meditation and being quiet and being present in your body. And for me, that was really helpful for kind of drowning out this obsession I had with food and kind of thinking about moving my body and really getting in touch with who I am and really being around other like-minded people that were not body obsessed, that were obsessed with like more of the spiritual teachings about learning more about themselves. So I was also sneaking out of my law office early to go attend my yoga teacher trainings. I remember like just not wanting to see partners in the elevator because I'm like, I gotta go. I'm like, it was this thing, but I was so committed to finding my way out. And I do remember sitting in therapy, you know, ever since I was a girl, I had a passion for health and wellness and fitness and all these things. But I remember telling him, I'm like, I love these things. And I wish one day I could have a career in all these things. But how can I do that when I don't have a healthy relationship with food? How can I ever have a career in that? And also have all this debt. And I had all these like obstacles that were in my head. I never thought I would have a career in food and doing what I'm doing today. It was just, it was never in my wildest dreams would I think I would be here today doing this.
Lately, I've been drinking a lot of water, which is a good thing. But the bad thing is that I get up in the middle of the night to pee and I have a hard time falling back asleep. So I often end up lying awake while my mind thinks about all the things I have to do the next day, and it ends up killing my energy levels, not to mention weakening my immune system from the lack of sleep needed and all the rest. So, if you have trouble falling asleep, or perhaps like me, going back to sleep once awake, I totally get you. That's why I wanted to share about Magnesium Breakthrough. I started taking it and it's truly helped solve several sleep problems from tossing and turning. And the best part, after a great night's sleep, is that I don't wake up groggy the next morning. Magnesium Breakthrough has been a game changer. And what a lot of people don't know is that magnesium is responsible for over 600 different biochemical reactions in the body. It promotes healthy sleep to help you just fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and have more peaceful nights. It also supports stress management, muscle recovery, helps reduce and prevent muscle cramps, and is needed to help build strong bones. Unlike many other magnesium supplements that might be giving you 1 to 2 forms of magnesium, Magnesium Breakthrough contains all 7 forms of magnesium designed to help calm your mind and help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. Not only does Magnesium Breakthrough help you sleep better, it also helps calm your mind and allows you to feel grounded and relaxed even during the daytime. Magnesium Breakthrough is soy-free, gluten-free, vegan, and the best part is that Bioptimizers has a 365-day money-back guarantee. That is an entire year you can try this product, and if you're not satisfied, you'll get your money back. So if you want to nurture your mind and body with this all-natural, full-spectrum magnesium supplement, go to bioptimizers.com/digest and use code DIGEST at checkout to save 10%. In addition to the discount you get by using my code, you can get up to 2 travel-sized bottles of Magnesium Breakthrough for free. This is a limited time offer to my listeners, so act fast. Again, just go to bioptimizers.com/digest and use code DIGEST. That's bioptimizers.com/digest and use code DIGEST. I get asked all the time on my Instagram if you can take too much sodium, if that's like even a thing. And well, before I tell you the link between low sodium levels and stress, I also want to tell you that the reason I went into a coma back in 2018 was due to low sodium levels. In fact, when they checked my sodium levels in the emergency room, they were off the charts low. And this is just one reason I take electrolytes every single day. And yes, I even salt my smoothies and every single meal. But low sodium levels and electrolytes can also cause a number of other factors, including stress. Cortisol is a hormone released during times of stress that affects nearly every process, including our mental state in the body. Now, high cortisol, in fact, has been linked to depression, fatigue, and stress in both men and women. So, where does sodium come in? When someone is sodium deficient, their cortisol levels go way up. Now, that's bad news for your mood. In addition, sodium deficiency triggers your adrenal cortex to start pumping out aldosterone. Now, aldosterone tells your kidneys to retain sodium. This is a useful survival mechanism, but it's not good for long-term well-being. And high aldosterone not only raises blood pressure, but it's also been linked to clinical depression. This again is just one reason why we all need to make sure our sodium levels are at their peak. The confusion of too much sodium in the body comes from the type of sodium. Refined iodized salt is what we should be staying away from. Now, if you really want to boost your mood in the right direction, listen to this, you guys. Studies suggest that magnesium status is closely linked to anxiety. And when someone is nervous, they excrete more magnesium in their urine, causing magnesium levels to drop. Additionally, on a population level, dietary magnesium intake is negatively correlated with anxiety. And clinical data also indicates that magnesium supplementation can have a relaxative effect. Along with anxiety, magnesium supplementation may also reduce depressive symptoms. Element provides not only sodium and magnesium, but also potassium, which is helpful in blood sugar regulation, kidney health, and bone density. And the exact ratio Element puts in each of their electrolyte packs is science-backed, resulting in the exact amount we need. Adding electrolytes into your diet is a great way to replenish and rebalance your body, mind, and mood. However, most electrolyte drink mixes contain added gums, sugars, colors, and even added oils, among many other unnecessary ingredients. I am really picky about what goes into my body, so that's why I choose Element's raw, unflavored electrolyte mix. Element's unflavored version contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio of salt, magnesium, and potassium. That's it. Just those three simple ingredients are in their raw, unflavored packs. Sometimes I like adding a squeeze of grapefruit or lemon for a burst of flavor, or simply just drink plain. And you can add more or less water depending on your personal taste preference. So whether you just finished a workout, sauna session, or just need to hydrate for your mental health, Element is formulated to help anyone with their electrolyte needs and is perfectly suited for those following a keto, low-carb, vegan, or paleo diet. And right now, Element is offering my listeners a free sample pack with any purchase. That's 8 single-serving packets free with any Element order. So get 8 free packs, but you must go to drinkelement.com/digest to get this offer. That's DRINKLMNT.com/digest. Element also has a no questions asked refund policy. So if you try it and you just don't like it, it's not for you, you don't have to buy it. You can get your money back risk-free, and you don't even have to send back the packs. You can just give them to a friend or family member or neighbor and then be on your way. So you really have nothing to lose. So again, just go to DRINKLMNT.com/digest to get this amazing offer. And so then Kale Junkie started, and was this just like a hobby, or did you like purposely say, oh, I am going to start and being a food blogger, and this is what I'm going to do for my career?
No, I started it as a hobby. So because of the 15-year eating disorder, I lost my period for that entire time. So because of that, Greg and I decided like I wanted to start a family, and I couldn't get pregnant because of everything that I had done to my body. My hormones were like I wasn't ovulating. And that was the first time I kind of saw like the physical effect of the damage that I had caused to my body. So we had tried to get pregnant. I couldn't get pregnant. Finally, I had to go to UCSF and really seek specialized treatment. I had to do several rounds of a drug called Clomid, which was just trying to make my body ovulate on its own. Finally, after several rounds, I got pregnant with Gavin, who is now turning 9, which is crazy. But I think going through the physical and mental trauma of like fertility treatments and seeing the effects of treating my body so poorly. I remember I had Gavin. He was 4 pounds when he was born because he was such a little baby. I remember coming home from the hospital it was like, you can't even like 4 pounds. I was like, how do I keep this little thing alive? Because they're so little. But again, it was because of all of the things that I had done to my body. So,
and how old were you when you first had him?
34 and a half-ish, right?
Okay. So you're like 34.
Exactly. And so Gavin, he was baby, he was at home, he was sleeping all the time. And one day I was just, you know what, I'm going to start an Instagram account. And it was all about, at the time, just posting like little healthier or things that I was making for myself. I was bored. I was like, I had this little baby at home and he was sleeping all the time. So I was also making other bloggers recipes. And I remember it was like at the time I was making minimalist baker things and posting them. And I was like falling in love with making healthier, more nutritious versions of the foods that I would previously binge on. So if I would go to a cupcake store and buy a dozen sugar-laden cupcakes, it was really fun for me to get in the kitchen and make cupcakes without refined sugars, but still tasted yummy and kind of satisfied that craving. And as I was, experimenting and having fun in the kitchen, I realized that those massive cravings that I had to binge started to go away the less I consumed the refined sugar. And I really do believe, and I'm sure you probably have studies and things that you've read over the years from your expertise. I believe deeply that consuming all of that copious amount of sugar day in and day out had some type of chemical reaction in my brain that made me, that was like a drug that made me crave it more and more and more and more. So as I started replacing that with like refined sugar-free options and less of it, I started, those urges to binge went away. And because of that, I felt like I could have, it was a beautiful thought to like be able to make a dozen cookies and have one or two, and the plate could still be there for the next day. Whereas that before was never, I mean, if I had cookies in front of me, I'd have to eat 12 or the entire thing at once to feel satisfied at that moment. So it was the ingredient swaps that were huge for me, but also I learned that I could have food around and that I didn't need to eat the entire thing in one day, that if I woke up the next day, it was still going to be there for me. And over time, it was, I think my account started slowly growing when I started telling people the story, when not only I was posting these little, kind of makeshift recipes, but also I'll never forget the day that I kind of showed my face on Instagram in a photo for the first time and let people know that I had this past eating disorder that I was still actually healing from and learning to figure out my place in the world. And what does that look like? And all of the women in particular, moms with daughters that were struggling or people that were struggling themselves at the time, commended me for being brave, where I was like, brave, it's like, you don't see yourself in that way, but other people see that in you. And I think that was what, at the time, years ago, you remember the early days, it was really, I was really focused on inspiring others to talk about the things that were uncomfortable, like removing those stigmas. And as I was, and that actually having this community as a hobby, I healed my relationship with food, not only with the recipes and the, cutting out the sugar and all of that stuff, but really my community healed me as I was healing them and helping them inspire them as well. So it kind of it's me helping them and also my community helping me truly heal.
Wow, Nicole, I love that. Community is huge, and you really don't know the impact you have on them, and they don't know the impact that they have on you. And even a simple comment from someone can truly just change the way that you think. It can change your day. And so for those listening, if you do send out a comment to someone that has, 1 million plus followers and you're like, they're not even going to see it, or it doesn't even matter, it can truly matter. And to that point, if you say something negative and you're like, oh, whatever, if they're not even going to see it, I'm just going to throw it out in the world. It does. It matters, because at the end of the day, we're all still human. And yeah, we may not know you. You're just someone online. But let me tell you, like, sometimes you can speak for yourself, but I'll speak for myself. Sometimes I'll read like a hurtful comment and I'll be like, dang, that kind of hurt. I don't even know this person. And then some days I'm like, it just rolls off my shoulders. I laugh about it. But like, so to that effect, I kind of want to ask you now, like, do you experience trolls still, or is it pretty like positive in your community?
I do. I mean, for the most part, it's positive. I think the trolls come out when there's like a viral video. Mostly they reach, some type of people out there that don't know me and that don't have a connection, right? I think the people that truly know my account or who I am, know the type of person I am. But usually these people come out of nowhere and they will make a critique not only about the recipe. Sometimes they talk about my physical appearance. It's like, your eyebrows are too big, your lips are too big, your hair is too long, like your nails are in your food.
It has nothing to do with the recipe.
And yeah, exactly. Or why are you not wearing gloves? Or but sometimes the comments do hurt. And I think, as I like to say that I am a strong person. I'm a strong, confident woman, but every once in a while there will be something that really like stings. And I've gotten better over the years of trying to let things roll off my shoulders. But I will, I am human, and sometimes a comment will stick with me, and it will ruin my day. And that is something that I still work with in therapy, because even though I'm not in therapy for my eating disorder, I'm still in therapy because I'm a human, and I think we can all benefit from it. But yeah, definitely hurts.
I mean, it could just hit you on the wrong day. Like you could just be having a bad day, and you know what I mean? It could just be the time you read it, and it
Exactly.
just, yeah, for sure. And I also I was making some notes here when you were just, speaking previously. And again, I feel like kind of going back to what you were saying about the refined sugar and how it really changes your brain and how it actually does make you crave it more. And I can completely agree because I've experienced it too myself. Like when I was younger, like, 15, 16 years old, I remember just eating like an entire bag of Oreos.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, obviously I didn't feel good. And so I did not have the best diet when I was younger, for sure. And then I felt sick afterwards. But like that's just like whatever. You just would eat mindlessly, or you just be like, I'm just gonna have the bag. Like you wouldn't look at, you didn't care. And I think I could totally be wrong, but one of the reasons I think that so many people have struggled with food, whether it's severely an eating disorder or just in the moment, I think because it is a lot cheaper than alcohol. It is cheaper than drugs. I mean, you could go to the gas station and buy a bag of Cheetos for 99 cents.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what other substances can you do and pay 99 cents for? So I think because it is so much cheaper, and obviously the cheaper the food, the worse it is for you, unfortunately. It's just like the go-to for everyone,
Yeah. And I think there's like less, like when you think about alcohol and drugs, I think there's still like some, like you feel less, maybe you feel less bad, or there's less stigma around like, let me go purchase a bag of Cheetos versus like, I don't know, maybe it's a mental thing. Like I'm not going to buy alcohol or drugs, but instead I'm going to pick the lesser evil, which is the food, the cheaper food, but that's also bad, too. I don't know.
Right. And I don't want to like disregard anyone that's struggling with, alcohol abuse or substance abuse or anything. Like obviously that is just as important. I'm not saying that here at all, but I just want to say I've seen that it's just a lot easier and cheaper and more available,
Sure.
to just buy a bag of, I'm just going to say Cheetos because I don't know why, it's just in my mind. But,
It's the same thing, like even with like, I have two boys, you know, 7 and 9. And even with the things that like are at school, or the snacks that my kids are exposed to when they go to friends' houses, or all of the things that I remember, Gavin comes home sometimes and he'll say, Mom, why can't you pack this for me? My kids, like the kids at school have this, and so it's really hard for me as a parent, between wanting a kid to be a kid and not feeling deprived, right, of childhood nostalgic things that may not be the best, but also making sure they have whole, nutritious foods that make their brains thrive and makes their bodies thrive. So it's a really hard, I mean, it's probably a topic for another day, but it is a fine line between like allowing them to have the treats, but also making sure that they pick the wholesome, nutritious stuff most of the time.
no,
So
I'm sure there's that delicate dance that you
yeah.
have to play for sure. Now I want to ask, what's a day in your life look like?
Oh my gosh. Well, there is no 2 days that are the same, but the last few years I've been pretty burnt out because I was filming 7 days a week and really not giving myself any breaks in between. Although I do have an assistant, I do all my filming, all my editing, all of it myself, a lot of the admin stuff. So it's, as you know, more than a 24-hour job if you let it be. This year, I've cut back and I've started batch shooting 3 days a week. And I give myself the rest of the days to kind of have slower days, take more time for myself because my mental health really needs it. So on a filming day, I will wake up, I will go work out in the morning. I come home, I get myself ready. I have all of my recipes that I'm filming tested already. I have the ingredients. I usually Instacart everything because it's just easier for me. I have everything ready to go on a filming day. I'll film 2 to 3 recipes and that will be it. Then I will kind of put everything away and get ready to pick up the kids from school, bring them home. And hopefully it's something, I have dinner ready, which is hopefully something I've made that day. But if not, I'll throw together like some easy tacos or we will make a pasta dish or something that's just easy to throw together on a busy night. And then after they go to bed, I'm editing and staying up late. And then, by that time, Greg's usually like, hey, are you going to pay attention to me? And I'm like, yes, I do. I forgot. I have you still here. I want to hang out with you too. So, it's a lot. And then on a non-admin day, I will always start the day with exercise like yoga or a class or something like that, or at least a walk. And then I get right into the admin stuff, doing emails, kind of planning and strategizing for the week and for the month.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's so many people that don't realize, I can definitely relate to you besides the kid factor, but there's so many people that don't realize so much goes on behind the scenes of it's not just making a recipe and posting it. There's the editing, there is and that could take forever. And then there's, the voiceover and this and that. And then not to mention the cleanup from the mess that you make in the kitchen could take a while. And then my husband gets mad at me because I like to film. I'm so bad. I like to film and then like clean up one thing at a time. So I'm never like making a big mess. I'm always like cleaning and cooking, cleaning and cooking. And he's like, why don't you just cook and then clean? Because it like bugs me. That's another topic. But then there's, the admin stuff that people don't realize of reading over contracts from if you're dealing with a company and signing or sending out invoices and just the emails back and forth in general. Those are the blog. You have a beautiful blog.
Thank you. So do you. I mean, it takes time to write all of the things and.
Yeah. So, I mean, to be doing that late at night is, I commend you for doing that because it's a lot. Like you said, it's a 24-hour job if you let it be. Mm-hmm. And so good for you for taking some time.
Yeah. How I think because you've known me so long, and I think we're both similar in that like our work ethic is really strong. We both, love our communities. We both work really, really hard. And I think sometimes it's hard to separate from work. You've actually been really inspiring to me in that regard. I know that like you've created some really good boundaries for yourself around, still working really, really hard, but also not letting social media control your life because you realize you have a life, with your husband and your family outside of Instagram. I think it took me a little bit longer to kind of get to that point to say like, you know what, work is important, but it's not everything. And if you don't take these breaks and create boundaries for yourself, no one else is going to do it for you. So that's why like finally I've stopped filming on the weekends and really been more present for the family, and all of those things, which in turn, I feel so much happier and I'm able to show up better when I am present on social media for work.
Nicole, I just was going to say the same thing that you inspire me. And I'm actually trying to not film or work on the weekends. And lately it's been 7 days. But that's just a reminder to me right now in the moment. We're recording this episode on Friday. So I'm like, okay, maybe I shouldn't work tomorrow, but a lot of people don't realize it's like 7 days a week here. Mm-hmm. And to that point, I had a question I was going to ask, do you ever get burned out? But I think you just answered my question.
I do. And I think I notice that when I am burned out, my content doesn't perform. And so I think it's an energetic thing too, which has made me like, if I'm not feeling good and my content's not performing, it's usually because I'm burned out and I'm not bringing my A game or my like best self. And I think vibes are important. I think that the vibes that you give off to people is felt in the content that you share. So when I reach that point, that's a cue to myself that I'm going to take the next day off. I'm going to do something for myself that's unrelated to work. I'm not going to do the admin work. I'm not going to film. I'm going to do something that fills my cup, whether that's meet a friend for coffee, whether that is, just
Retail therapy.
Yeah, exactly. Some retail therapy, get my nails done, do something where I'm just like not in that zone. And then usually I'm able to like, I get excited again to wake up the next day and I'm like, okay, what am I making? I'm ready. Let's have fun. And then usually the content does a lot better because vibes, they are important. They never lie.
No, for sure. It's a love-hate relationship for sure.
Yeah.
And you mentioned like just trying not to overshare because, and I'm asking this next question because I struggle with it myself.
Mhm.
I often am like, I grab my phone, I'm like, oh, I got to share this. Oh, I got to share this. And lately I'm like, okay, Bethany, no, I don't have to share everything, but I'm catching myself. Do you ever catch yourself and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to share this like moment. And then you're like, wait a minute, maybe like I don't have to.
100%. I think I'm the first like oversharer of everything because I want to bring people into like every detail of what's happening in my life, especially around like the stuff that's not work related. So if I'm not shooting a recipe, I want to share my family. I want to share my kids. I kind of want to share what's happening. And I would share my kids a lot, but they're actually now kind of getting to the age where sometimes I want to share something and my older son will like put up his hand like this in front of his face. And I'm taking that as I'm reading the cues, right? To say like, he doesn't want to be in this content today, that maybe I don't need to share this. And I'm going to respect his privacy and his boundaries around what's okay and what's not okay. So I've been sharing a lot less of the kids, but also in my everyday moments, it's been nice for me to like have moments throughout my day where my phone is down. I mean, I look at my screen time and it can be like 12 hours a day on Instagram if I, look at it.
Totally.
And then days where I'm like, okay, if it's 5 hours, I feel accomplished because I'm like, oh, there were some moments in the day that I actually didn't have to share. And it feels like really nice. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I get asked to, and I'm sure you get tons of questions like, hey, like, can you share like just random meals? Can you share what you ate for breakfast, for lunch? Like, I want to know. And for me, I'm just like, you know what? I don't have to share what I eat every day. And sorry.
Exactly. And people aren't, and you don't have to, and you realize that like giving people access to you, you don't have to give people access to everything. And there are some things that you want to guard and protect, whether it could be like what you eat in a day, it could be your relationship with your husband or your family, or things that you want to keep private or special to yourself. And I think in the early stages of this, I thought I had to share every single thing. And sometimes there is real beauty and in the privacy and keeping things to yourself without like, it's more just to fill your own cup with things that are joyful to you.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads me to my next question. So what are some things you wish you knew when you first started being a content creator?
What do I wish I knew? Well, I think how much work goes into being successful for sure. Like again, as from an outside observer, you look and it looks so easy and you see these beautifully put together videos, but there's so much more that goes into it. I wish that there was a little bit more transparency among content creators when I was first starting out, like people that were open. I remember you were one of them that we would talk and we would bounce ideas off of each other. But I don't think that was something that was done in the early stages. So like talking and having open relationships with other creators is something for sure. Yeah, I think those are the two things that come to mind mostly. How about you? I'm curious.
Oh, what do I wish I knew before
Yeah,
I started doing this?
I
Well,
know.
kind of the same. I mean, the work that goes into it for sure. And I think the sharing, like, I wish I knew that I didn't have to maybe respond to everyone. And I'm sure you're the same way, like type A personality. I thought I had to respond to every single comment, every single DM. And it was like taking about 4 hours plus a day,
I
like
remember those days, actually. I remember those days of you. Like you were like, I remember.
totally. I mean, I'd wake up. I remember earlier days, I'd wake up, I'd spend 2 hours straight in the morning just answering DMs. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And then like later in the day, I would go back and answer. And I finally, and not to like, I'm sure you're the same. Like, yeah, you want to answer people's messages and you do, but you don't have to answer them all. Like, send me another one so it pops back up on the top.
Exactly. One of the things that I've been doing because, as you know, it's just impossible to answer the question or see all the DMs. I've been doing my Friday Q&As, which I've really been enjoying doing. So like, because I miss so many of the messages, I'm like, okay, every Friday, you drop your question in the box. And then I have, you can go back throughout the week and be thoughtful about like the responses and hopefully that they're helpful and you answer them one time. Or I tell people like I miss things and save the question for Friday. If it's important and you really want an answer, save it for Friday and I will try to get to it then. But I think that's been really helpful for me too. And also people know that they can, for the most part, expect an answer if I can get to it.
That's a great tip, Nicole. I'm going to steal that one.
Yay.
Yeah, a weekly like Q&A. You're so good about that. You are just so good about answering people and you're always on top of it. And, you bring your A game all the time. And I love that about you. And you're just so genuine. And I mean, again, we go way back. And so I'm just thoroughly just enjoying this conversation. I do want to ask, and I feel like this is kind of the same question, but not. So 2 questions. What is the worst thing about Instagram? And what is the best thing about Instagram?
I would say the worst thing about Instagram is I think the anxiety that it produces sometimes. And for me, getting caught in the comparison trap from time to time or having imposter syndrome. So maybe it's all 3 of those things. There's this mental thing that happens when a post goes viral. It's a dopamine hit, right? You feel like, at least for me, I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm on top of the world. People love me. They love my content, all of the things. When in reality, my self-worth is my self-worth. It has nothing to do with my self-worth, how well a post performs. But you feel like you're on top of the world. And then the next one can happen and it doesn't perform. And then I automatically for a moment there, I'm like, wait, people don't like me anymore. It's this like, it goes from high to low. And so again, one of the things that I work on in therapy is disassociating value as a person from performance on a post, whether that's a high or the low, and know that I'm perfect as I am as a human in this moment, regardless of how something performs. And I think sometimes part of human nature and who we are sometimes is automatically to look at what the person next to us is doing and sometimes say, oh, what they're doing is so great, or theirs did great. How come mine didn't? And to stop yourself in your tracks from that moment and say, we're all different. We're all beautiful in our own right, in our own regard. And you have something beautiful to offer the world that is going to be something completely different than what I have to offer the world. And really stepping into that rational mindset and pulling myself out of that and to say, okay, stay in my own lane, focus on what I'm doing, and everything else will fall into place. And I know for when I'm able to do that, that is when I'm happiest in this career. That is when I'm healthiest in this career. And I think that's when I thrive the most. When I stay in my own lane. And some from time to time, there's also that imposter syndrome. Sometimes you feel like you're not good enough and you're not adding enough value. And why do people want to look at me for my recipes or my tips that I'm sharing? So again, I think these are all things that as humans, we struggle with, but I think there are certain careers like what we do in social media that really bring out those traits and those qualities. And that if you're not mindful and if you don't process and take some steps back from that, they can be all consuming. And I can see how this career is anxiety causing. It does cause depression from time to time. So on the flip side, what I love the most is my community that I've built. My account, as you know, because we've been in this together from day one, was not a fast blow up overnight. It was, this has been the product of, gosh, if Gavin's almost 9, it's almost 9 years of day in and day out sharing and building community and responding to people and getting to know people. And I love that. I think that except for the trolls, my community they're there and they're invested, and I love them and the time that they spend engaging with me. And so I always keep them at the center point of everything that I do. So it's the community, and it's also me getting to be in my happy place in the kitchen, creating recipes, which is now another form of therapy for me. Just kind of being in the zone and getting creative and sharing. So it's the community, and it's the creativity that goes into coming up with the recipe and then figuring out how to shoot it and then how to edit it on days when it's not so stressful. Those things are actually really fun and joyful.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you put what was once a trigger and now it's like freedom, from your past, and now you're using food as almost like a healing mechanism, and like you said, therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really the centerpiece of something that is so beautiful, and your content is not only beautiful, but delicious. I have made your recipe, not all of them, but there's so many recipes, and I have made them, and they are just delish. And
I always think of you sometimes, by the way, when I'm like making something, I'm like, this would be Bethany approved. I'm like, I always think like Bethany approved, or like this one would not be so Bethany approved, but this one would be. It's like,
oh my gosh.
Sometimes you're in the back of my head. I love it.
Well, I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you. I'm honored. And it's actually funny because there's this store, not to go off on a tangent, but you know what? We're doing it. There's this store, and it's like a Middle Eastern store that I shop at. I love it. And they have tahini there. And every time I go in there, and I'm not just talking about a small jar. They have about a huge, like bigger than the size of my head jar of tahini. And I always think of you, always. And I'm like, I got to ship you this gigantic jar of tahini because like that's your thing now. Just ever since the life-changing cookies. But
Yes.
anyways, yeah, no, I love that you have really taken your past and turned it around. And to that point, I mean, do you ever get triggered now because you're around food all the time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people ask me that question, and honestly, no. I think because I am around food all the time, that thrill of like having something around is just kind of no longer there, because it's in, and I know that I can eat it, and really I can eat anything. And that even includes once in a blue moon something with refined sugar, and I'll eat it. And then I'm like, ew, why did I do that? Only because I don't feel good after, right? But I kind of don't say no, everything in the world is off limits or black and white, only because of my past eating disorder. And if I tell myself no for something, it kind of, it gives it power over me, and I don't want to give food power over me. So if I want something bad enough, I'll have it, and then I'll pay attention to how food makes me feel and say, okay, that was good for like now, and I don't ever really want to have that for another 6 months or a year or maybe ever. But yeah, no, nothing really triggers me anymore.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think that you hit the nail on the head because I get asked that too. Like, hey, how can you not eat the entire batch of brownies? Like,
Mhm.
and I'm just like, I made brownies and cookies today. I'm around, like you said, you're around it all the time where it kind of loses its fluff,
Yeah,
and you're like, okay, and to the point of where a lot of people kind of going back to the whole like restricting. If you are restricting food, then of course you're going to crave it.
exactly.
So it's like a natural thing. So I mean, you never restrict, and I never restrict. I'm always around food all the time. And it's just something that it's like, yeah, I'll have some, but I'm not like wanting the entire batch because I got like more brownies to make,
Exactly.
whatever. And I always think of I'm sure you come across people too, people that work in coffee shops. They always tell me, oh, I hate coffee. I hate coffee. And it's because they're around coffee all the time.
Exactly. They're around it, the smell, like it's just a part of who they are. And they're like, okay, it just kind of loses that whole, I get to go to a coffee shop and order myself my favorite latte because they're just around it all the time.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever experienced that. Like so many people, they're like, I don't even drink coffee and I work at, whatever, Starbucks or
Yes.
something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So,
I want to ask you
mhm.
to share a little bit about your book.
Oh, yes. So my cookbook came out last year. It's called Love to Eat. And it is it's part memoir and part cookbook. So part of the story of how I healed my relationship with food. And it really gives people some tips for intuitive eating, which I know is kind of a term that's thrown around. But for me, when I talk about intuitive eating, it's how I eat now, which is really I don't subscribe to any diets. I don't eat vegan, paleo, or put a name to anything. It's really like, what is my body craving in the moment? Typically it's protein heavy because I wake up craving eggs and meat and protein heavy things. But it's for the most part, a lot of the things that I binged on and didn't allow myself to eat, but I made more nutritious versions of them and included them in my cookbook. And it gives people the tips for whether that's meal prep, grocery shopping, how to incorporate these meals into their everyday diet and to love the skin they're in. Because again, part of my journey was being unhappy with my body and not feeling like I was thin enough or perfect enough or all of these things, and realizing that that you have everything, that the beauty is already inside you and that you're perfect exactly as you are. But yeah, there's no refined sugar in there in the cookbook, because again, that for me was the thing that I felt like I could never break free from. And I can't in good faith put a book out into the world that is something that is not aligned with my own eating style or habits.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
all feel good food. And I'll be sure to put the links in today's show notes so that people can grab your book. They can find you on social media. Again, Kale Junkie is just across all platforms.
yeah. And your book was really helpful for me too. And like, especially with like the gut healing too. I mean, I think part of the eating disorder effect of what I went through was healing my gut. So not only the hormonal issues with getting pregnant, and your your gut is the first thing that's definitely messed up. And like I got into bone broth because of you. I remember that years
Mm.
ago back in the early days of like you're drinking bone broth as a way to heal your gut lining. Okay, I'm going to start drinking that and realizing, oh my gosh, okay, incorporating this into my diet every day does matter, and your tips and the things that you share with other people are really helpful, and you've motivated and inspired me in so many ways over the years.
Oh, Nicole, you make me cry.
That's
Well,
true.
and I just love the community because everyone is really giving and taking and
Mhm.
sharing and really benefiting. And that's what's great about Instagram is that community, like you said. Um,
Exactly.
so last question.
All right.
What's next? What's next for Kale Junkie?
Kale Junkie wants to be on TV.
Is there something in the works here?
There's nothing in the works quite yet, but I'm working on just doing some TV appearances this year. That's one of my goals. I'm also really interested in doing another cookbook, but I want it to be a series of books. So it's going to have one theme, but be able to like build off of one book's going to build off of the other and kind of be a couple of them. I'm still refining the concept, but that is definitely a project of mine that's going to be in the works this year or early 2025. So I'm ready to put more good stuff in the world, give people some more recipes, give people some more tips and things that they can use to live their best lives. And we're all busy. I think we are busy professionals doing the best we can to all juggle family, friends, a social life, take care of ourselves and our bodies and our minds. So how can we give that to other people and help improve their lives? So that's kind of at the forefront of what I'm working on.
Oh my goodness. I'm so excited. You have a lot coming up. And I mean, all these different, is it going to be like the cookbooks? Is it going to be like noodle theme, cookie theme? Or what are you saying here?
It might be weeknight dinners. It might be lunches. It might be entertaining. There's going to be, but they will all build off of each other. And the idea is to have a little library of them.
Oh, I love it. Well, I'm so excited. If you want to follow Kale Junkie, if you not already are, Kale Junkie, Nicole, I love you. It's been such an honor to have you on, and I can't wait for this episode to air.
I know. I'm excited. I love you so much, and I'm grateful not only for this opportunity, but just for your friendship throughout all of these years.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of Digest This. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review in your podcast app to let us know. If you're ever wondering how you can support me and this podcast, sharing it with your friends and family is the best way. This is a Resonant Media production produced by Drake Peterson and edited by Mike Fry. To email the show, message us at digestthispod@gmail.com. See you next time. The content of this show is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for individual medical and mental health advice and does not constitute a provider-patient relationship. As always, talk to your doctor or health team first.